Really appreciate you guys coming today. Just want to make sure, does everybody have something to write on and something to write with? Okay, cool. All right. So my name is Andre Cohen, and I am a diversity trainer and consultant with Anoka County down in the students, and so I will probably tell you more about me than you ever want to know. So with that, we'll go ahead and get started. So we'll start with this video.
With a greater readiness, let us stand with a greater determination. Let us move on in these powerful days. These days of challenge to make America what it ought to be. We've got some difficult days ahead, but it really doesn't matter with me now, because I've been to mountaintop and I've looked over and I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land. I'm not worried about anything. I'm not fearing anything. Our eyes have seen the glory of the promise of the Lord. 1960, students all over the South started sitting in North Town, and I knew that as they were sitting in, they were really standing up for the best in the American dream, and taking the whole nation back to those great realms of democracy, which were dominated by the founding fathers in the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. We've got some difficult days ahead, but it really doesn't matter with me now, because I've been to the mountaintop and I've looked over and I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land. I'm not worried about anything. I'm not fearing anything. Our eyes have seen the glory of the promise of the Lord. 1962, when Negroes in Albany, Georgia, decided to straighten their backs up, and when every man is working straighten their backs up, they're going somewhere, because a man can't ride to God religion again. 1963, black people in Birmingham, Alabama, roused the conscience of this nation, brought into being the Civil Rights Bill. Later that year in August, they tried to tell America about a dream that I had. We've got some difficult days ahead, but it really doesn't matter with me now, because I've been to the mountaintop and I've looked over and I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land. We've got some difficult days ahead, but it really doesn't matter with me now, because I've been to the mountaintop and I've looked over and I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land. I'm not worried about anything. I'm not fearing any man. Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord.
Can anyone tell me what excerpt that is from what speech? First of all, that is Martin Luther King, all right? And what speech was that from? It was what? It was not the one at the Washington Monument, which is commonly known as the I Have a Dream speech. It was the what?
That's what I
It is not the I have a dream speech. What was the hook? What did he keep repeating? What did you keep hearing him say? Promised land and being where? Say it loud. The mountaintop. So this is from the mountaintop speech. Now, do you know what is so profound about the mountaintop speech? All right. So, Dr. Martin Luther King, the mountaintop speech, what were some of the things that you heard? And then I'll tell you why this is an important speech. What were some of the things that he said?
Justice will come, but it's really slow.
Justice will come, but it's slow. What's that?
But he knows it will come.
He knows that it will come. What else do you hear him say? What are other things that he says in this clip?
Talks about no physical violence.
In this clip, he talks about no physical violence.
Okay, that's not physical.
Okay. What other things did you hear in this particular piece? It's not my fault. It's what you heard in this piece. What were some of the hooks? What?
It's hard for me to understand that sentence.
Yep.
Sorry.
No, that's fine. That's fine.
My eyes have seen the glory.
Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of what? Of the Lord. Mine eyes have seen the coming of the glory, coming of the Lord. Where does that come from? The battle hymn of the Republic, right? Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of, right? So he talks about that. He talks about the mountaintop experience. He says that I may not get there, but you will get to the promised land. What is he equating? What metaphor is he using to talk about this? What's that? Moses
didn't make it.
Right, Moses and the children of Israel, right? So on this particular night, he talks about the fact that he compares himself with Moses and the children of Israel, right? So he says, I might not make it to the promised land, but you will. Because Moses did not make it to the promised land, but the children of Israel did, right? And so he is saying all of this stuff. And why this becomes so profound is because the next morning, so he gives this speech in the evening. The next morning, he wakes up to an assassination in Memphis. So he gives this. These are the words that he says the night before he is executed. And so when I hear those words, I get chills down my spine to think that he was prophesying his departure. But greater than that is what comes after his assassination. Because he compares himself with Moses and the children of Israel. And so if we follow that story or that comparison that he makes, there's some very powerful things that are now in our hands. So one of the things that happened, once Moses got to the top of the mountain and could not go into the promised land, they sent spies into the land. They sent people to survey the land, this promised land, that they have now arrived to. And so some of the people went over there and they said, this is the promised land. This belongs to ours. This belongs to us. So Joshua and Caleb went out and surveyed and said, oh my goodness, this is the land of milk and honey. There are grapes the size of a man's head. They came back and they were like, yes, we can do this. But there were other people who also went out there with them to survey the land, and they said, yes, there is milk and honey. There are grapes the size of a man's head. But there are also monsters out there. There are giants who think that this land belongs to them. And they said, look, given those circumstances, we should not go. Ultimately, what was the decision of the Israelites at that time? Did they say that we're going to let these giants stop us from taking what God said belongs to us? Or are we going to go in there, fight those giants, and get our milk and honey and our grapes? They decided to do the second. To go and fight those monsters and conquer. Now, if you are... what was some of the most profound things that Moses did for the Israelites up to that point? What were some of the amazing things? You saw Charleston Heston hold up those tablets, right? Out of my cold dead hand. No, that's something else, right?
Set my people free.
Set my people, let my people go. Right? So Moses did all these amazing things. He stood up to Pharaoh and he had him cross the Red Sea, helped them cross the Red Sea. And he talked to burning bushes. He did all these incredible things. So when the Israelites found out that Moses is dead, what do you think Joshua and Caleb's biggest difficulty was in dealing with these children of Israel?
And establishing friends.
Establishing some kind of leadership, right? One of the things that they had to remind the people is that Moses was dead. I mean, because there were certain people that are like, well, Moses wouldn't do it like this. Moses would just, why do we have to do it? Because Moses. At some point, Joshua and Caleb said, we're tired of hearing about Moses. Moses is dead. Dr. King is dead. Mother Teresa is dead. Gandhi is dead. So now that those folks have, first of all, will there be other Gandhis that come along, do you think? No. Will there be another Dr. King that will come along? No. Will there be another Moses to come along? No. Why? Because it is now in our hands. We are the Moseses. We are the Dr. Kings. We are the Gandhis and the Mother Teresas that we're looking for. And so whatever liberation or lack of liberation that is going to happen, it is going to happen because of us. Now, I want to tell you this, and this may be alarming to some of you, but you are somebody's Moses. There is somebody that is watching you and paying attention to you. And you may not even know who that person is, but they're looking for you for leadership and guidance. I don't know how many times as a teacher, I get stuff from Facebook all the time from old students. And it surprised me because I'm like, you actually heard when I said that? And you remembered it enough to try to look me up on Facebook and tell me about it? Somebody's looking for you for leadership. And their caged existence or their freedom lies in your ability to stand up and rightfully take what is yours, all right? Which is freedom. So we'll talk more about that in just a second. Life is a lot of responsibility. So, Diversity 101. How many people have been in a diversity training before? Raise your hand. All right, cool. I got a lot of people to fix. Yeah. Because, and the reason I say that is because a number of trainings, at least that I've been to, have been more harmful than they have been helpful. Kind of like my PowerPoint right now is not as helpful as I'd like for it to be. And so I'm going to do my best to try to undo some of the harm that has been done to you. All right? So I'm going to show a video clip, and then I want to have some conversations about this video clip. So you can now play. All right, there we go. It's clear that something is happening. So what's obviously happening? How many people have seen this clip before? Okay. So this is something you find on America's Home Videos or something like that. So what's happening here? So what do you see is happening? There are control issues, all right? What else? There's attention seeking, all right? No, he's not hurt. But he's persistent, right? So why is he persistent, do you believe?
If I keep doing this,
Maybe if I keep doing this, I'll get what I want. What else? Why else is he behaving this way? It has been effective before. So I know that in the past, this has worked to get me what I want. Which means that if I'm not getting what I want, then I must continue to do this until I get what I want, right? And so, as a method of trying to achieve a goal, is this working?
not now.
No, it's not working now, right? How do we know it's not working now? Because he keeps repeating it. What else? All right, they keep walking past. What else? They're videotaping him. I mean, can we make the assumption this is not his first time doing this? Right? So he's obviously done this before, often enough that they've gotten the video camera, they know he's going to do it, so they're playing with him. So the parents know that this isn't working. We know that this isn't working. The dog knows that this isn't working. Right? But who doesn't know this isn't working? The little boy. So when will the little boy's behavior change?
When it's not reinforced.
When it's not reinforced? It's not being reinforced right now. But he keeps trying it.
Right, he's done that reinforced before, so it's harder to break that.
So it's harder to break that habit. But when will it be broken? You know it doesn't work. The parents know it doesn't work. The dog knows it doesn't work. Who doesn't know yet? He doesn't know. So at some point, he has to figure out that what he is doing is not working. So in our families, we all have and it may not be as extreme as this, as having a racist individual in our family, but we may have someone who's not politically correct in our family, right? And I don't know about you, but I know that I've had conversations with those individuals. You can't say that. That is not okay to say. You can't act like that. It's not okay to act. And they keep behaving the same way. Why? Because they haven't figured out that the way that they're interacting with the world is not working. All right? But it's until they understand that they will change their behavior. All right? So that is the basis of the kind of work that I do. So here is my approach. My approach is very simple. People can learn, change, and grow. Who I am today does not have to determine who I will be tomorrow. It's the decisions that I make day by day that lead me to my ultimate outcome. And so I can learn, I can change, I can grow if I understand what my goals are and how I want to get there. All right? All human behavior is goal-directed. We are all working towards or striving towards something. All right? I'll tell you what that goal stuff is in just a second, but we're all trying to achieve something. So there are no behaviors that people exhibit without having some kind of rationale for that behavior. Even if people can't articulate it, they still have a way. They still have a goal or a reason they do things. Kids are notorious for not being as articulate as they could be around why they did a thing. Their typical answer is what? Oh, no. Right? But they did have a motivation, and if you ask the right questions, you can get to their core motivations. People do what makes sense to them, even if it doesn't make sense to who? You or me, right? My understanding their rationale is not a precursor for them exhibiting their behaviors. So I don't have to understand or rationalize or even comprehend the reasons that they do things. They do, right? And then attitude is a response to a goal. Typically, what have we been taught about what an attitude is? That it's bad, okay? That you have it.
That is negative.
That it's negative.
You can change it.
You can change it, right? Anyone been around teenagers? Anyone been a teenager, right? They are said to have a lot of attitude. And I oftentimes could not figure out what my parents were talking about when they would say, boy, fix your attitude. You know, go to your room till you learn how to act. You know, and I'd be in my room for a while, and then I'd step out into the hallway. To be or not to be? I ended up spending a lot of time in my room, right? Because that's not what they were talking about. And so it took me a long time to figure it out. And then one day I got it. So my dad was my pastor growing up. So I'm a preacher's kid. And on Sunday, we would go to church because we had to open up the church. It was a small congregation, about 150 people or so. And so we had to open up the church. And so we get there at 7:30 a.m. to open it up, and for Sunday school at 8 o'clock, right? And we stay all day, and we close at 11:30 at night, and we'd stop at 3 o'clock for chicken. Not because we were black, but because chicken is delicious. So Sunday is church all day. So Friday night, I asked my dad to the car, what does my dad say? Because he loves me, he says what? He says, yes, he loves me, right? So I get the keys, I go out, I hang out with my friends, I put gas in the car, I come back before curfew, and what does my dad say about my attitude? Do I have a good attitude or a bad attitude? I have a good attitude. And I say that my dad has what kind of an attitude? I say he also has a good attitude. So I have a good attitude, he has a good attitude. All right? Fast forward to Sunday. My best friend Dexter calls me at 12 noon. He says, Andre, can you pick me up for the movies? What do I know about Sunday? All day church, right? All day church. But Jesus is my friend. So I'm like, I can count on Jesus. He can hook a brother up, So I go up to my dad and I say, Dad, can I borrow the car? And what does my dad say? Not only does he say no, but he gives me a sermon about how I'm leading people to hell. Every negative consequence in my house was going to hell. And either you could go there on your own, or my father would be able to instruct you on the ways to get to hell. Right, he would send you. So as a consequence of him giving me this lecture and denying me, I say my dad has what kind of an attitude? A bad attitude. And what does he now say about my attitude? That it's a very bad attitude, right? So what is it that actually determines one's attitude? Conforming. Okay. How you respond. Go ahead.
Getting what you want versus not
getting what you want versus not getting what you want. And how do we say that in educational terms? We say it is a goal, right? When you achieve your goal, you have a good attitude. When you are denied the achievement of your goal, you have a bad attitude. Here's an example. Same teenagers, right? Have you ever denied a teenager something? The funkiest attitude ever arises. You're like, you're related to me? You're connected to, oh my goodness, you're horrible, right?
You have 2 heads.
Right, yeah, at the same time, when a teenager is able to accomplish or reach their goal, it's almost as if they purr, You know, they want to cuddle. Right? They have a good attitude. They get the little saliva coming out. Oh, that's my cat. That's my cat. Right? But their attitude is based on a goal. And so if I encounter a person with a bad attitude, what is the one thing that I know about them for sure? They're not getting what they want. And so as a helper, I have two responsibilities to them. One is the easiest, which is what? If they're not getting what they want, they have a bad attitude, and I want them to have a good attitude, what's the easiest thing for me to do? Help them get their goal, right? So if I can help them get their goal, that's an easy one. Boom, I'm out of here, right? At the same time, what happens if their goal is unrealistic, it's not accomplishable, the resources that I have or the ability that they have to actually do the thing is limited and it's not something they can do? Then what becomes my responsibility? Okay, so let's say if I change their goal, how do they respond to that? It's not their goal. So my second responsibility is to help them what? Find a new goal, right? Revise or find a new goal, all right? So, all people can learn, change, and grow. All behavior is goal-directed. People do what makes sense to them, and attitude is a response to a goal. So that's all. These are all precursors to. We'll skip that. To a lot of things. So a number of you have said that you've been in diversity trainings before, and this is the piece where I start to try to help heal those harms that were done. All right. So typically, before I start talking about what diversity is or offering a new paradigm on diversity, I have to deconstruct and talk about the old paradigm. All right. And so typically, the old paradigm deals with political correctness. And what is political correctness? What is political correctness? Okay, certain names you would use or names that you would refer to different segments of the population. All right, what else? It's not slang, okay. Political correctness. It's more respectful, okay.
It's talking in a way you wouldn't. It's talking in a way that's different than you do with people who are similar to you.
Okay, so it's talking in a way that's different than you would with people who are similar to you. Mm-hmm. Okay. Political correctness. Political correctness, frankly, is a joke. It's a joke because the trick is I'm not quite sure what to call people anymore, right? I mean, the terms change, the stuff changes, and I want to say I'm less concerned with political correctness because I remember being in a training at the county, and a woman stands up and she says, "Andre, I want to know why all the colored people are moving into my neighborhood." How do you think the audience responded? Were you guys there? That was exactly what they did, right? And so the woman is standing there, and now they're looking at me. They're like, "Oh, get her, you know." But I'm standing there, and I'm looking at this lady, and one of the things that I noticed is that it's very clear that she does not have a lot of stamps in her passport. That all of her crayons have not been sharpened, right? And so noticing that, and I noticed that she's asking a pure question from a pure heart. What now is my responsibility to her? To answer her question. I can talk about political correctness and all that kind of stuff later, but she was brave enough to stand up and ask a question that other people had that were in the room that did not have the gall to be able to stand up and ask their question. And because I've also been in other interactions with folks who are politically correct, and as they're talking, your skin crawls because you can hear the nastiness behind the words that they're disguising, right? So it's not about political correctness. It's also not about blame or guilt. A lot of times, trainers in particular do a really good job of trying to make white people feel guilty about things that they didn't do. And then they try to make make people of color feel noble about things that they actually had no control of being noble for, right? What happens when we feel guilty? Are we motivated to really give our 100% best? Do we go, yes? No, we turn into little turtles, right? And we do as little as possible. And so when people think about this concept of social change and how things, need to move, when we operate from a place of guilt, change takes a long time. Why? Because I really don't want to do it, but I'm feeling forced to do it. I look at Steve Jobs just passed last night. I look at the things that he's been able to do in the 25 years that he's been a part of Apple that has changed the world. Change can happen as soon as we want it to happen. We went to the moon in less than 10 years. Change can happen when we want it to happen. Polio is almost non-existent, particularly in the industrialized nations. Why? Because we made a decision to make it happen. So we can't operate by guilt. Also, diversity is not a therapy session. It's not my job to make you cry and make you reveal your innermost secrets and all that kind of stuff. I can do that later, and I usually charge about $95 an hour. So please seek me out if you need therapy. I'm good at it. It's also not about black and white, and I mean both the metaphorical sense as well as the racial construct. Because oftentimes, that's an easy construct to use, but we leave a lot of people out of the conversation. So it's not just about black and white. It's also not about meritocracy, and meritocracy is the concept that if you work hard enough, you can be just like me. What's the challenge? What's the problem with that way of thinking about the world?
They're wrong.
What's that? They're wrong and I'm right. I'm right and you're wrong. What else? Yeah, you might not want to change. What makes me the standard? What makes me the standard? Why am I so important that everybody needs to be just like me? Right? The world would be a sad place if LeBron James had to play basketball the way I do. That would be horrible. Right? So it's not about meritocracy. And lastly, diversity is not about tolerance. And a lot of people get nervous when I talk about this. Diversity trainers say, don't touch this, don't talk about it. This is what's been holding us together for all these years. But when we think about tolerance, what does the word tolerance mean?
It means you put up with it.
It means to put up
acceptance.
with. It means to put up with, right? You took a deep breath. So tell me what that breath is like.
It all depends on your mindset when you tolerate. If you tolerate something that, I guess it also, what I'm tolerating. If I'm tolerating a squirrel coming into my yard and eating the bird feed, the seed, that I put out, that's because, or I tolerate that noise, it's because I want to feed the birds, but I have to put up with the squirrel because all the little squirrel free bird things don't work. Squirrels are smart. They'll figure out how to get in there. But I keep feeding the birds and I tolerate the nuisance of the squirrel coming in and eating. So I'm feeding the squirrel too in my thought. But if I'm tolerating somebody's injustice to me, that's when it becomes bad.
Okay.
Because of tolerating, then I don't let my voice be heard and say, that isn't having the rest of the society grow. We continue to allow this to happen.
Okay. Tolerance.
Yeah.
To put up with.
Right.
Right. So I want to give you a different way. I want to expand that definition and expand what you're talking about in terms of tolerance with this story. All right. So my brother-in-law came to visit, and I tolerated that dude. Why?
You want to keep peace with your wife.
I knew when he was going home. Right? You can put up with those squirrels because you know at some point they're not, either the bird feeder is going to be empty or they're going to go away because it's winter or whatever, and you won't have to deal with them. Or you can take that bird feeder away and then you won't have the problem any longer, right? So the concept of tolerance says I will put up with differences until I no longer have to. And so what my suggestion is that we have to move beyond tolerance. Now, a lot of trainers will tell you that political correctness and meritocracy and tolerance, those are good first steps to talk about diversity. And I can't disagree. But my answer to that is that babies drink milk. And why do babies drink milk? What's that? To grow. All right, what else? Because they can't chew. It's the earliest form of nourishment. So these are great first steps. But even babies at some point move from milk to tofu. I'm a part vegetarian, I guess. Omnivore is probably more appropriate. But a lot of times we get stuck at these things and say, we've arrived. You know, I don't say bad words anymore, so I must be a good person. But you have bad words in your heart. You're thinking those bad words, but instead of saying the word, you say shucks, right? It's the same thing. So I got a lot of mouth washing, so I know something about this stuff, right? So Andre, what do you offer? I like Wheel of Fortune, so I'm going to give you a second to try to decipher this Wheel of Fortune puzzle. All right. As soon as you have it, just yell it out. All right. There is dignity and honor in being human. So what's a new paradigm for diversity is understanding the fact that there's dignity and honor in being human. All right? So what is dignity? How does one define dignity? So what's dignity? Respect? Okay. Dignity. Is it something that you have, or is it something that you give?
Is it something you allow to?
Is it something, yeah, is it something you have, you give, or you allow? Sure.
We usually take 5. Or you recognize someone's dignity.
Yes. So it is, in fact, all three. If I add that third one, right? So it is something that you have, it's something that you give, and it's also something that you allow, right? And so, and I don't know about these parts, but in the cities we have people who stand on the road sides of the roads with cardboard signs, right? And what are those signs typically asking for?
Money or food.
Money or food, right? So when I see them, what do you think I give them? I'm not giving them any money. You feed a stray cat and it keeps what? Coming back, right? So, so there is, so I don't give them food or money, but I do give them dignity. And the way that I do that is I make eye contact with them. I recognize that they exist. And on occasions, when I have the opportunity, I roll down the window and we have a conversation, usually about this big, but I roll down the window and we kind of have a conversation about their situation, and I may give them a resource of some sort, right? But what I'm saying is that you have the right to exist and that I know that you exist. Because if we don't give people dignity, they try to take it. And I see this all the time when I'm at a stoplight or at a stop sign and there's a group of teenagers trying to cross the street. Now, you would think with as many beauty products as there are and as young as they are, they might be able to move across the street a little faster. Right? And I used to think it was because their pants were hanging so low, but I've seen them like hike those puppies up and get going. Right? So you know, kids walking across the street, and it never fails. Like they get right in front of me and make eyeball-to-eyeball contact as if to say, I dare you to hit me. Right? What they don't know is that I don't have any spots on my driving record and I have excellent car insurance. Right? But what they're actually saying to me is, your kind Adults, don't ever see us any other time, but you will see me now. And there's nothing you can do about it. So they're trying to take back some dignity. And what is honor? Honor is respect at a high level. All right? Who in our society have we said we will give high levels of respect to? The law, our parents, mom and dad, our grandparents, people who fight in wars on our behalf. We said we will give them high levels of respect, right? So next question. Please raise your hand if you can answer yes to these two questions. One, raise your hand if you passed a test or you purchased a ticket that made you eligible to be born on this planet. None of us have done anything to bring ourselves here, right? We accepted an invitation. And again, I don't want to think about how that invitation came. It's disgusting. But we all accepted an invitation. And we're all trying to figure out what it means to be this last part, which is human. And when I was looking for a definition of human, I found two definitions that I thought were very interesting. One was a noun, being a biped. Having opposable thumbs, a big brain, and a belly button. If you encounter a person without a belly button, be concerned. Right? So human, Homo sapiens sapien, the one who knows that they know that they exist. And then I found the fact that human was also an adjective. And what do adjectives do? They describe nouns. And so what is it that we teach our children, and we teach the young people around us about what it means to be human? What are we teaching them? We have a higher calling than the rest of the animals. What else do we teach them? What does it mean to be human? To coexist with others. What else do we teach them? That's it? That's all we teach them? What about, how do you relate to other human beings? What kind of relationships are you supposed to have with other human beings? Okay, so to be respectful, to love others. What else? To interact, okay? Interact in what way? How? Politely, right? Being kind, being civil, you know, using the rule of law as opposed to the law of the jungle, right? We are civilized and we are human. Now, I want you to think about what would happen, what would your life be like if everyone around you gave you the dignity and honor for being who you are. Not because you were the right shape or the right color or had the right, you're in the right social groupings, but what if everybody around you gave you 100% dignity and honor just because of who you were? How would your life have turned out if everyone was giving you that? Just think about that. Now I want you to think about what happens if we give our clients this. Remember I talked a little bit about Moses and Dr. King and how, you know, we need to be that person. I want you to know that we might be the only person that our clients get dignity and honor just because they exist. We might be the only person in a day, in a week, in a month, in a lifetime that demands that they be respectful of themselves. We might be the only person who ever smiles at them when they come and sit with us after having a horrible day. We might be the pressure you feel about having that huge responsibility. It is a true weight to carry. And it's so funny. I was working with a bunch of our employees, and they were like, Andre, that's too much. I don't want to do that. I say, great. Quit. Because I need someone in this position who will treat treat our clients and the people that we're serving with dignity and honor because they exist. And so if you can't do it, that's fine. We'll just find somebody else. And they say, well, let me rethink about that. Right? So there's that. So how does this relate to diversity? I got a lot of stuff to go through. So I'll just jump to the really juicy stuff. So I don't know if you've noticed, I try to use a lot of different media in my presentation because as a high school teacher, I had 15 minutes. After 15 minutes, I lost my students. But then they started getting into YouTube, and then they got reduced to 10 minutes. So I have to change something every 10 minutes in my class. So exploring the internet, I found this show called What Would You Do with John Quinones. I'm not sure if you've seen this. What they do is they pose these ethical dilemmas, and they see how people will respond to those. So we're going to watch one of those ethical dilemmas, and I'd like to talk to you about that afterwards. All right? I may step out and get some water because I'm a little parched. So if I leave, it's not because of anything you've done.
Not a second.
Yes.
Hello and welcome to the opening show of our primetime series, What Would You Do? If you see something and you think it's wrong, do you step in or do you step away? What people say and what they do aren't always the same. That's why our hidden cameras are so revealing. In our first scenario, we weren't sure what to expect when our opinionated man behind the counter meets the Muslim woman in a headscarf. Deep in the heart of Texas, at this little roadside bakery, bigotry is being served with the coffee and bacon.
Sir, I have a question.
No, ma'am. We don't serve Muslims here.
I'm sorry?
This is America. We're at war with your people.
I don't know what you think I am. I'm just trying to get an apple.
Well, you're a terrorist is what you are. So,
Excuse me?
you got to take your business elsewhere. We don't serve your kind here.
The other customers at this bakery near Waco seem to hear everything, but they barely look at the Muslim woman, even when the language is tough to take.
Get back on the camel and go back wherever you came from.
Sir, I'm an American. I was born and raised
No,
in
you're
this
not.
country.
Americans don't wear towels on their head.
Muslim Americans say these are words they hear all the time in all parts of the country. But here at the bakery, what the customers don't know is that this Muslim woman and the man behind the counter are actors. The bakery is working with us, all part of a primetime hidden camera experiment on prejudice and patriotism.
Please take your business elsewhere. Am I asking too much?
When no one even tries to help her, she makes a direct appeal.
Sir, would you mind ordering me an apple strudel? That's why I'm here. I can give you the money. I have no problem.
That's not a problem with me.
Please no, sir. I'm not going to let you
Work
have it.
out.
But when he gives her the cold shoulder, she finally just leaves.
You could have helped her out. You could have spoken up. Why not?
Me speak up for her? Well, if he would try to do some harm to her or something, then I would have.
Well, why not try to set him straight?
And I really think that a person that owns his own business should be able to say who they sell to.
She's not American.
Others seem to agree with our actor as to who's an American and who's not. Is it all based on the way we look?
I'm an American citizen. I just would like an apple strudel, please.
Well, I'm sorry. Then why don't you dress like an American? You're
This
so
is for
American.
religious purposes, sir, and I don't think you have any right to say anything.
So I'm religious. I don't wear, Halloween costumes around. I mean, am I wrong here, sir?
Not me.
I run my business the way I want to
That's
run.
right. That's right. Don't let me in here with that with shoes and skirt on.
This customer is adamant that the man behind the counter is doing the right thing.
Correct you.
But the fact is, it's against the law to deny service to someone based on their race or religion.
My name is John Quinones, and I'm with ABC News. What did you think of what you heard here?
I didn't hear anything racist.
He told her he wouldn't serve her,
Well, he can say he wouldn't serve you if you come in here barefooted without a shirt on.
but she wasn't barefoot or without a shirt on.
Well, she wasn't dressed right.
What do you mean?
If I was running a place, I'd do the same thing.
You wouldn't let Muslims shop at your store?
I sure wouldn't.
We never expected customers to be so candid.
How do I know you don't have a bomb in there?
Watch what happens this time when, once again, our Muslim woman is denied service
This is not right.
and again leaves.
We reserve the right to not serve.
That's right.
Certain
That's right. That's, you know, I appreciate seeing that. I think that's the first time I've ever seen that.
He not only commends the man behind the counter for his discriminatory behavior, but he gives him the thumbs up, not once, but twice,
Good job. All right.
as he leaves.
So can I talk to you, sir, for a second?
But when I approach,
So we're with ABC News.
there is no thumbs up for me.
We staged a little experiment in there to see how people would react to that kind of attitude. You know, I'm American. I am an American.
That man took it a bit farther, telling me I'm not an American.
He was threatened.
Jack DeVideo is a social psychologist at Yale University.
So when we as Americans feel threatened from the outside, we're going to define ourselves in very rigid fashions. Either you're with me, and if you're not really one of me, then you must be somebody else who's against me.
The young woman in our experiment is an actor, but for this woman, discrimination is all too real. Nahaya Javed helped us design our experiment. Although born in Chicago, she says she's constantly characterized by fellow Americans as the enemy.
They always start off with, you're a terrorist, Osama lover, towel head, camel jockey, on and on.
While attending college in Texas, she says she continually suffered verbal abuse and has even been physically attacked just because she's Muslim.
They assume I'm not from here, and if I tell them I'm American, they're like, no, you're not. Just because you were born here doesn't make you American. And I'm like, so what makes you American?
It's a daily battle.
And I don't feel like living in America, I should have to fight this battle.
Meanwhile, back at the bakery, our actor is at it again.
But how do I know you're not a terrorist? Terrorists look like you.
But this time the customers are sympathizing with the Muslim woman.
Right, I know, but can you blame me?
Yeah, I can't blame you, actually.
Why? What's the problem?
All right, we'll get out of here. You need to go yourself, actually. What do you need to do?
Okay, sir. I'm a good American, all right? We're at war with these people.
My dad's a veteran. Go yourself.
So is mine.
And he's not the only one who walks out in anger.
You need to stop segregating against people. It's wrong.
Excuse me?
She's an American.
No,
like
you're a bad American.
Time and again, people speak out with their pocketbooks.
You murdered a couple of customers, just so you know.
But look what happens when this man threatens to leave.
You're not a good American, sir.
I believe I am a good American. My son just came back from serving in the Army for over a year in Iraq, and that has nothing to do with her right. I understand that, and I hear what you're saying. But I can't believe you would be so discriminatory. I'm deeply offended by that.
I'm sorry to offend you, sir, but I've got to live with myself.
Seething, the man vows to fight back.
I will let people know this. I've stopped here every time I've come by this place, and I'll never stop here again.
Why did folks get so upset?
They saw an injustice. It's justice that binds us together. It's justice that makes us a society. Any threat to that kind of sense of justice and fairness undermines the entire system.
You're really not considering
No, I'm not.
Perhaps that's why more customers are outraged by our actor's hateful behavior than approve of it.
You're not dressed like an American.
But no one is more persistent than these two young women who can't believe what they're hearing.
Take your jihad, take it back out to the parking lot.
Excuse me?
I mean, I gotta protect my customers, okay?
You're really offensive and disgusting.
Well, I'm sorry, I'm just trying to protect you here.
Thank
because
you. You're
don't know what's
sick.
going on.
Like that doesn't mean anything. This is a
How do you know?
culture.
These people are trying to kill Americans.
Disgusting. It is my culture. So you're ready to serve me, but you're not ready to serve her.
You're obviously dressed like an American.
Big deal. She's Muslim.
And unlike the others, they don't just leave in anger. They stand their ground.
So you're going to regulate what people wear?
Yes, because I believe
Are
the
you
degree
the
of...
manager?
No, I'm not the manager.
Can I speak to your manager?
I'm John Quinones with ABC News.
It's only when we catch up with our heroines that they finally let their guards down.
I'm with my friend who's, Muslim, and that's, I've just seen, I have people treat them differently. And it really hurts me.
Just watching them stand up for what they believe in touches Professor DeVideo.
In a way, they defended America, and I was impressed by that. because they wanted this to be a just society, a just place, a just bakery.
Now, Jack, can you understand? And remember this man whose son served in Iraq? He's also moved to tears.
Every person deserves to be treated with respect and dignity,
No matter
in every situation, no matter how they're dressed.
Never have we seen reactions so polarized, from a thumbs up for prejudice to an emphatic thumbs down. Two different Americas, both convinced they're patriotic. At the end of the day, 13 people stood up for the Muslim woman, while 6 sided with the clerk. But the majority of the bystanders, 22, did or said absolutely nothing. That's what's most frightening to Muslims like Nahaya, who was watching our experiment. In fact, so frightening that they often avoid going out by themselves.
It's really sad because I'm old enough to be able to do things by myself. I shouldn't need a chaperone all the time. But that one time that I'm alone and something bad might happen, I'd rather be safe than sorry. I am Nahaya.
It's no wonder this young woman was so moved by the people who came forward to protect a stranger who just happens to be Muslim.
Thank you so much for what you did, and I wish more people would do these types of things. And
I do too.
It would make my life a lot easier.
God go with you.
What I'd like for you to do is to just write down 3 words that come to mind for you after watching that play. 3 words. All right, so what were some of the words that folks hate? All right, what else? What's that? Historical, okay. This is religious discrimination. Is it Corey? Yeah. All right. What was one of your words, Corey? Sad, okay. Brave, okay. What was one of your words, man? Hope, okay. Cool. All right, so let's talk about some of your thoughts about this particular video. So what were some of your thoughts as you were watching it?
We have a black president.
We have a black president.
More polarized than we've ever been.
Okay, and we're more polarized than we've ever been. Okay? What else? Embarrassing. Okay.
And I think it's because it's embarrassing to me that we even have a culture that's like that.
Okay.
So polarized, so diverse, and yet so equal to each other.
Okay.
I think historically, that's why we're historically have been very group of people that live in this country, from the Irish to the Italians to the Roman Catholics 40 years ago. Our history is it's quite a while for considering groups that don't look like us into culture.
Okay. So historically, it's taken a long time for us to accept groups that quote unquote don't look like us, whatever that means.
Don't talk like us.
Yeah, because you know, it's very difficult for me to tell the difference between a Norwegian, a Sweden, and a Finn. But apparently they know the difference, right?
I know.
She's like, I don't know. Right? Okay, but first let me
Doesn't make it right.
Right, it doesn't make it right, but it explains some things, historical things. I do want to let you off the hook a little bit, right? Because when they started this video, they played some music that was very leading, right? They wanted us to go to a certain kind of place. And so they played that deep in the heart of Texas, right? So they started playing that kind of stuff because they wanted us to start thinking of what? Like whom? What said that? Rednecks, right? Ignorance.
Right away when they played that, I thought, oh.
Yeah, so when they played it, they were like, uh-oh, right? Yeah. So do you think this could happen here?
Oh,
yeah. Right. I have some videos of things like this happening in Mora, in the Twin Cities, and other places. So you know, so there I do have some documentation of that stuff, but this is a little more poignant for my uses today. So so it can happen all over the place, and so we'll continue because I'll get to more of my points in just a second. So. The metaphor that I'd like to use that comes out of this clip is that there were 13 people who were positive, who were supportive of this woman getting apple strudel. There were 6 people who were negative or did not want her to get apple strudel. And then there were 22 people who did nothing. Now, what we don't know is what people did outside of the thing. So I just want to use the video as an allegory, if you will. So we draw meaning out of this particular allegory. So typically, what do we call, or how do we refer to those negative 6s? We see them as extreme. Very vocal and very extreme. What else? Do we label them? Do we call them things? How do we refer to them? We call them racists, right? We call them bigots, right? We call them racists and bigots, and we call them extreme, and we call them all those things. And once we call them those things, do they go, thank you! Now I know what my problem is. I can now help you. Is that what happens? No, what ends up happening when we call them those things? What's that? Say that again? Confrontation happens. What else? They get defensive. Now, if I were to ask any of those people who denied this woman access to apple strudel, if they were racists or bigots or all that stuff, what would their answer be? No, of course I'm not. I don't have a card. I'm not a card-carrying member of that club, right? But to us, it's very clear that the denial is those things that we mentioned. And so I'll come back to that in just a second. The other thing is that the negative 6s are disconnected from reality. This lady can't have apple strudel. Really? Like, is that important that she not get it? So we're going to act this way, right? They get disconnected from reality. And they also get disconnected from us. One of the things that, if you have a negative 6 in your life, I'm sure that someone in your family is not politically correct. I'm sure they tell odd jokes, inappropriate, confrontational jokes, or you just don't want your kids sitting on their lap. I mean, you have one of those people in your family, right? Yes, sir.
And the other ignorance of Arab and Muslim, the largest Muslim country in the world is Indonesia. They're not Arab, they're Asian.
That's right.
So the whole concept of Arab Muslim, and that's where they're from, is incorrect.
Right. So they're disconnected. And they're typically disconnected from us. Because what I typically, because I have Uncle Joe. I don't know if you guys have an Uncle Joe. But Uncle Joe is that dude you don't want the kids sitting on his lap, right? And you don't really care where the kids are as long as you know where Uncle Joe is, right? So, but the interesting thing is that we disconnect Uncle Joe from us. And so how does Uncle Joe know how to act right if we're not there to teach him? But I'm going to come back to that in just a little bit. The other thing, and I happen to personally love these people we call racists and bigots, and I get excited when I see them. When I see a kid with, black boots and jeans and chains and swastikas and piercings and all that kind of stuff, I get excited to talk to that kid. Why? a teacher. And what do I know about the human existence? That everything that we're exhibiting is stuff that we've learned. And if it's learned, what does that mean for me as a teacher? I can help him learn something else, right? So I love working with the negative sixes because I know that there's something that we can work on together. All right. The 13s are they're sweethearts. They're easy to get along with. What did you notice about the 13s in the video clip? What were some of the things that stood out for you about them?
They're all empowered.
They were empowered people. Okay. What else?
They were all ages.
They were all ages. Okay. As opposed to the negative sixes that seem to be what? White males. Okay. Older white males. Okay. So the 13s were kind of all over the place. They were courageous. They were able to stand up and say what they thought. They were connected to individuals both physically present and not there. For example, the older gentleman said, look, my son fought in this war on her behalf, so I'm connected to him even though he's not here. But there were also other people who stood up, and when they stood up, other people also stood up, right? The 13s are able to find allies, and all of those two things right there help to really make them courageous. Right? But what actually is courage? How does one define courage? If I was king of the forest. Courage. What's courage? Sticking up for your beliefs. Irregardless of the cost. Go ahead, you took another breath. No, please.
To me, I talked about we conform as children so we can get what we want. That's our goal. And so conforming, we conform to society. We act a certain way, we act different. Society forces us to conform. And that is, what happens sometimes. Like in this case, the guy who was behind the counter was already saying these things. He gave voice to these other people's already, negative opinion. And they had an ally, so it gave them courage to, but these other people, they didn't have allies. They stuck with their convictions no matter what. It was, that takes real courage, but people conform in order they conform to exist in a certain group of people.
Right. And conformity, I will say, is a good thing when it does one thing. When our ability to conform helps us achieve our goals, it is good. When conformity, for the sake of conformity, and it's not helping me achieve my goals, or is actually detrimental to me, that's bad. Can you see that? So conformity for things that are leading me towards my goal is a good thing. But if I'm conforming and it's the act of conforming is actually damaging to me, it's a bad thing, right? So we talked a little bit about why the baby was crying and falling down, and it's because his behavior worked in the past, so he believed that it would probably work in the present, which means he will probably continue that behavior into the future until he recognizes that it is bad for him. And so when we talk about the sense of conformity, even with the negative sixes, they're conforming to something that works when? When did that crazy behavior that these sixes were displaying, when did that work? When was it okay to say, women act like this? And the role of, different kinds of people is this. Where were those people coming from? Were they talking about the future? Did they have future experiences that they were talking about? Were they necessarily talking about their present experiences? No. Where did all of their stuff? It came from the past. And so in the past, those things, those ways of thinking were acceptable. The oldest gentleman who was acting like this grew up in an era where that was what? Acceptable. It was the status quo. It was normal. It was just how things were. Why are the dinosaurs not here? They couldn't adapt. Right? You know, there are some people who even say the children of Israel spent all those times in the wilderness because they weren't that far from where they started and where they were supposed to end up. Wasn't geographically that far. But they spent 40 years doing that. Guess why? Because some people had to die off so that they could appreciate what this new promised land could offer. Right? So here we go here with these sixes, and they've conformed to this thing in the past, but now that we've moved into the future, their conformity back then has now become problematic. When? Now. So when conformity works to help benefit us, then it's obviously a good sense of conformity. It just makes sense. We adapt to the environment in which we're in. But what happens when the environment changes and we don't? We have a problem, right? So when we talk about these negative 13s, this courage, I want to say there's one thing that typically does not get talked about when it comes to courage, and that is fear. Before you can be courageous, you must be afraid. You must have fear. If you don't have fear and you're courageous, you're a psychopath, right? And when I talk about fear, I talk about the two types of fear. There is the ambiguous emotional state of the unknown, which is fear. Right? So you don't know what really is going to happen. So that creates anxiety, and that is the emotion that we call fear. But we also refer to fear as a level of respect that says that I'm going to meet this challenge, but I have to know stuff about it. I have to understand its parameters. I have to have a certain level of respect for it. Therefore, I have fear. For example, I have fear of bodies of water. So I am not going to get out of my boat and send the boat on in the middle of a body of water because I know that body of water is greater than I am. Right? So I have fear or respect for it. All right? So to have courage, one must have fear first. Now, anyone know a serviceman or woman who's in the armed services? Right? They get training. Why do they get training? To prepare for what? For the unknown. They get training and preparation for the unknown. So training means that they think about the unknown, they prepare for the unknown, that they get resources that they can find allies and get connected with other members who are also going to engage the unknown altogether. To minimize fear. Fear is always going to be there, but when you are prepared with the right resources and the right practice, fear that used to be this big becomes fear that's this big. All right? So let's get to the 22, because I want to talk about them and then get back to negative sixes. Do these make sense? Is this making sense? Okay. Is this helpful? Okay, cool. Because I don't want to be like those other trainings that I'm trying to help you with. So here we go. So we got the 22. So what is the problem with the 22? They're fearful. They're called the silent majority. And is anyone familiar with the silent majority? What is the silent majority? It's the middle. Okay. In 1970, there was a president that most of you are not old enough to remember. His name was Richard Nixon. And he coined this phrase, the silent majority. And who was Richard Nixon talking about when he talked about the silent majority? Or what was he talking about when he said the silent majority? He was talking about the older white people, okay? He was talking about people who were not out in the streets, picketing or saying anything. He said, you are quietly at home supporting me. And so your silence means that you support what I'm saying because I am not a crook, right? So he created this thing called the silent majority, which is a myth and a lie, and I'll tell you why in just a second. And we also refer to it as Minnesota Nights or passive aggressive. right? That I have friends that we keep talking about doing lunch. We know we're not going to do lunch, right? But, hey, man, when we get together, let's do lunch. Yeah, man, let's do lunch. All right. Okay, see you next time, right? We never talk about a date, a time, or anything. We're just being Minnesota nice. The problems with the 22 is that they are fearful. And why are the 22 fearful? What were the two things that we talked about with the 13s around fear? Anyone ever seen a deer on the side of the road? Dead. Why is a deer dead on the side of the road? Why did he step in front of a car? He saw the car. Why didn't he move? What's that? It paralyzed him? What do you mean?
Like he is right now? Because they didn't know what to do.
They didn't know what to do. They froze. So the deer steps out into the highway and he's like, what is that?
Yeah.
It's getting closer. Ah! Right? That's what happens, right? Why? Because the deer is not prepared for the car. One of the things that deer does, the deer don't have, that we have, is that we have the ability to think forward, right? Most of us can think forward, right? We have imagination. We can look at the results of things and guess what will happen, right? Deer don't necessarily have that thing. So what happens is they see these car lights and they're like, I don't know what to do. Guess what the 22 say? I step into a headlights. I mean, I'm in a situation that I'm not prepared for. Somebody is saying something that I don't know what to do because I haven't had the preparation for. And so instead of doing something, they do nothing. Go ahead. It makes sense? Good.
They're probably not leaders.
What's that?
Probably not leaders.
But even if they were leaders, you know what, I can take a sergeant who is a sergeant in title, but has never been in the theater, put him in the theater, and if he hasn't practiced, because he's on paper a leader, we saw that with Katrina, right? We had these emergency management people who were on paper in charge of this, that, and the other thing, but when it came down to spitting on the road, they couldn't show, right? They were horses that couldn't run, right? So what happens is the 22 get into a position where they've not been experienced. They haven't thought about it. They haven't done anything, right? I've had 22 experiences. But guess what happened? I took that 22 experience and I said, ooh, I didn't do anything this time. Next time, I'm going to do this, that, and the other thing. And guess what happens? What does the universe do to me? They put me back in the same 22 situation to see if I would do what I said I would do. Part of and people really want to dog the 22 because they don't do anything. And I want to say, if you're ever in a 22 situation, don't feel bad about yourself. Just know that that was your practice for the next time. What's the problem with falling in the mud? Stand there. Get up, dust yourself off, and say, you know what, I didn't do so well that time, but the next time I will, because I will practice that in my mind. I will. How many times have you had a conversation? First of all, let's back up. So, all those who self-identify as a man, please raise your hand. All right, cool. So I assume that the rest of you identify as being a woman, right? So, women, here's a question for you. How often do you and other women talk about sexism? Have you ever had a conversation about sexism with other women? You can just nod your head. It didn't have to be a deep conversation, but at least you talked about it. Yes? Okay, cool. Men. How many of us have sat down with other men and had conversations about sexism? Never happens. Right? So if we're trying to resolve a problem, but if we're trying to resolve this problem, because I think women see it as a problem, and then men, we see it as a problem for our daughters, But we're not talking about it with the other half of the problem. We're going to have this problem for a long time, right? And so the 22 can be valuable in helping us with that. But more importantly, I want to go back to some folks I think that can be even more influential. These negative sixes. Because the biggest problem is that the negative sixes keep acting crazy. And why do they keep acting crazy? No, they don't think they're acting crazy. But why do we think that they're? Because their behavior is not predicated on us understanding or believing what they believe, right?
They're not conforming to what we think.
So they're not conforming to what we think is right, but why?
They probably haven't been challenged.
They haven't been challenged, right? Because the 22, where do the negative sixes get their power and their influence from? From the 22s. The 22s, right? Because if a 13 and a 6 get together, they're going to be some clashing of thoughts, and they're going to have some words. And so what they were saying is not going to fly, right? But the 22s stand back and say nothing, and the 6s think that they're being supported. Because our silence means support. I'm on the board of a number of organizations, and we use Robert's Rules of Order to make decisions, right? And so what typically happens is that when there's time to make a decision, the board chair will call for the question, which means that we're going to start this process of voting on something. And so when they call the question and it's been seconded and we're ready for the vote, there are 4 ways in which you can respond to the vote. If you like what the decision is going to be, or you like what they're proposing, what do you say? You say yes, yay, aye, right? You say yes, yay, aye. If you don't like what they're proposing, you think it's a dumb idea, what do you say? You say nay, no, I don't want any, I don't agree with that, right? So you can say yes, you can say no. The third thing you can do is what? You can abstain. So if I have some kind of moral or circumstantial conflict with the decision that's going to be made, in some way I may benefit from it or it may hurt me, I can't be a part of it, I want it written in the record that I abstain. So I can say yes, I can say no, or I can abstain. The fourth way of making a decision using Robert's Rules of Order in that process is to do what? Say nothing. And when I say nothing, what does that actually mean? I agree with whatever decision is made. Not only do I agree with it, I support whatever decision is made. So we don't have the luxury of not saying anything, because not saying anything is in fact giving the negative sixes support. Now, the other thing about the negative sixes that's really important is that they are our responsibility. The negative sixes only exist because we have not taken the responsibility of making sure that they're taken care of. I want you to think about somebody who you think is different from you. And I want you to think about, what do they want? What do they want for their families? What do they want for their children? What do they want for themselves? Just think about that for a second. We talked earlier that all human behavior is goal-directed. So what is that goal? I'll tell you what it is. It's simply significance, belonging, and safety. Those are the 3 things that everybody is trying to achieve. Now, how they achieve them or the methods that they use to get to those things may be different, mostly based on cultural experiences, geographical regions, or socioeconomic standards, but that's everything everybody's trying to get. So someone who you think is different from you is actually trying to get the same things you are. One of my favorite songs in the 80s was by the Police, I hope the Russians love their children too, right? So the negative sixes. So one of the things that I learned about the negative sixes is this, is that they primarily exist because of good people. How many people will consider yourself a good person by your standards? Raise your hand high, however you define it. Oh, come on, you guys are good people, right? You guys are good people. Now, one of the things about the negative sixes that's really interesting is that I was watching Animal Planet. Anybody ever watch that stuff? You know, Shark Week is coming up. All right, love Shark Week. So I'm watching Animal Planet, and one of the things that I know is that good people like us say we can't have Uncle Joes around us or around our children because we're good. Keep Uncle Joe away, right? So I'm watching Animal Planet, and they're following a pack of wolves, a coven. So they follow them as puppies. So the wolves are all this kind of stuff and wrestling around. And then they show them as teen wolves, and then ultimately adult wolves going out for their first big hunt. And they go out for their first big hunt, and they're hunting an elk. And so they practice all this time, and so the alpha wolf does his part and jumps in the hind quarter of the elk. And what does the elk do? What's that?
He tries to keep running.
He tries to keep running, and he kicks the wolf, breaks his hip. Now, there are no hospitals in the forest. So now what becomes the wolf's destiny? Death. Right? His destiny is death. And so he knows that he's going to die. The rest of the pack knows he's going to die. And so to save the integrity of the pack, what does he decide to do? He goes off on his own. He leaves the pack. Kind of like Buddy. Anybody see that movie? That's a 2-box tissue movie. Right? So he decides to leave the pack because the pack will be better. And what typically happens with these negative sixes is that as good people, we say we are too good to have those bad people around us. So we cut them off. And they go off to start their new destiny, which is what? Death. Right? Social death. But as social animals, human beings are so creative, and we're so much more social than those wolves, that we decide and we find new what? Packs. So Uncle Joe and his negative six self goes off and he finds a pack of other what? Negative sixes. And those negative sixes start breeding their own packs. Right? And so what I would like to offer you is that it is our responsibility. So first of all, you said you were good, right? How do you know, anyone here a botanist? No botanist? Okay. So how do you know an orange tree? It has oranges on it, right? You said you were a good person. So how do I know that you're a good person? I know an orange tree because it has oranges. And so I know you're a good person because you have good what? Fruit. You have good fruit. Now, an orange tree is only good, the fruit is only good if what? You take care of it? When do I know that it's a good fruit? When it's a good tree? When it's shared. So when because the fruit is no good if it just stays on the tree. So the fruit has to be good for someone else. So your goodness should be able to rub off on somebody else. So if you're as good as you say you are, those Uncle Joes in your life, there's something about you, your goodness, that should be able to rub off on an Uncle Joe. The only way that these negative sixes get healthier or get better is if they are close to us. Last story. I had a habit of leaving my clothes in the kitchen. That's where we would meet to do homework, TV. My mom would cook there. And so Thursday night we had catfish. My mom cooked the heck out of catfish, and it was just so delicious. And the red hot sauce helped a lot, right? So you put enough of that on there, and anything tastes good. And so so I left my clothes in the kitchen, and so Friday morning, first hour algebra class, I had a problem. What was my problem? I smell like catfish. Why did I smell like catfish? Because my clothes were in close proximity to catfish. Now, I had clothes that were in my closet in my bedroom that did not smell like catfish. Why? Because they weren't close to the catfish, right? So my clothes were next to the catfish and they smelled like catfish because they were in close proximity. So many of you said that you were good people. And so I want you to, after you laugh, I want you to think about this next statement. What do the people around you smell like? Do they smell good like you? Because there's something that if you are as good as you think that you are, there's something about you that should rub off on them. All right? So your handout. I'm going to go to the back page because I think we're just about done if we're not over our time. So what are some ways in which I can build myself and prepare for thoughts and prepare for things that I don't know are going to happen? Just like the stewards and stewardess say, put your mask on first and then help somebody else, right? So learn history of your immigrant story. Do research on your family histories. Find names for family photos. Visit your family homesteads and tell your family stories. Because if you're able to tell your family stories, you'll be much more tolerable to hearing my family stories. All right? Get information. You can do those things. 8 things to remember. Assume nothing. Make your feelings known. It's better to be a 13 or a -6 than it is a 22. So stand up because your liberation can actually free somebody else. Develop friendships across cultures, across gender lines, across ideologies. Develop those friendships. Be open about differences. I am, and I don't think I told anybody, but I'm black. And I'm glad I said that because I didn't want anyone to be surprised. Okay? You know I'm black, and I know I'm black, and it's okay to talk about that. All right? And once we have relationships, and we have friendships, then we can talk more in depth about that stuff. But know that it's okay to notice differences. All right? Encourage questions and ask questions. I had dreads for a long time, and I did not mind. I was open about the questions that people had about them. At the same time, I had questions about things that other people did. So it was a give and take kind of situation. So be open to questions, and also know that the deeper the question that you want to ask, the deeper your relationship needs to be before you can ask that question, if that makes sense, right? Know that mistakes happen. We will make faux pas and do politically incorrect things all the time, but know that we can use those as opportunities to learn and not beat ourselves up. No one is a spokesperson for everyone. You can ask me about what black people think. I can only tell you what I think. Just like I can ask the women, what do women think? What do women want? Right? And you can only speak from your perspective. And lastly, no ethnic or sexist joke is funny. Now, one way to humor is a difficult thing. And so these are some keys that I use around humor. If someone asks me if they can tell me a joke, what is my response? No. Why? Because the joke that they're about to tell is inappropriate. Otherwise, they would just tell the joke. Right? So there is that. The other thing is when I hear a joke that's slanted towards a specific group of people, so say I hear a blonde joke, in my mind, when I hear that, I substitute Polak or Jew or black or poor or some other group in that joke, and all of a sudden that joke that I thought was so funny no longer becomes funny. Because those things are hurtful to other groups of people. And so know that if somebody will talk about another ethnic group or another racial group or another gender group, they sure enough will talk about you. All right? Again, our ultimate goal is to make sure that we have whole and positive people, that we're giving people the dignity and honor of being human, not because they've done something special or unique, but just because they exist. My name is Andre Cohen. Thank you so much for your time. Any questions, comments, observations? This was a lot. I know it was a whirlwind of stuff. And how did I do on time? Oh, I went over about 10 minutes. I apologize for that. I'm sorry.
People can listen